right. But Jim has a Nicole handcrafted drink, so it doesn't make any sound.
Yes.
What does she make? It's beautiful.
I'm not sure, but it's delicious.
You need to go in there with your own sound effects.
Yeah, there you go. So we got Jim and Mike, who are already becoming fast friends after just meeting. I knew that would happen.
Yeah, because we have nothing in common.
Yeah.
That's right. I do have my new TRS-80 shirt, courtesy of Jim.
Direct from Real Radio Shack.
From the Real Radio Shack.
Yes.
You have your Atari 2600 game console.
Yes.
We have...
I got Jurassic Park.
An artifact of
this is,
uncovered by
from the
archaeologists. Brought to us by Indiana Jones himself.
Yeah, that is an Atari 2600 controller. And I don't remember why, but I did test it a few years ago. I was doing something, and it does work.
Okay. Well,
really
do you have to return it to the museum after we're done? Or,
yeah. It's I got to put it back in the safe and escort it back to the museum.
Okay. And
I didn't point this out in the last video about axe throwing, and I wore this shirt, but Blake of Axaholics in Odessa gave me that shirt, and I wore it. So that's pretty fantastic. Thanks again, and that episode will be out right before this one. And I threw an axe when it was over and stuck it on the 4th try.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we will be doing that while we're here.
Yeah, we got to give it a shot.
I agree.
We'll do some archery. We'll do all that stuff. All that crap's still laying in there. I just kind of scraped it off the table. Oh, we got both of you. So I want to talk about gaming.
Gaming, what's that?
Yeah, you're the guy.
What is gaming? I've never heard of that.
And gaming, especially for old people, because you got me back into gaming, and it's intimidating. So 2 things got me back in, and so I kind of want to work around that. Mike is current on a lot of stuff, and I think people are missing out on some pretty cool experiences, especially folks my age, our age, Gen X. Jim and I are Gen X. Did we figure out, are you technically upper end millennial? Did we?
I am on the side of the millennials. So
okay.
I am, yeah.
Okay, so that's where I want to go from there. And I was thinking the way to start this off to show where we are in terms of electronic archaeology. And speaking of electronics, I'm going to be eyeballing this stuff because you two drag electronic demons around with you. Yeah, the undead souls of software bugs. So
now, if something does happen, it's all because I did the fingers.
Yeah. So you guys have seen Mike in a number of episodes. Jim was in a couple. We talked about computing and
BBSs.
Yeah, BBS. Pre-internet culture and all that. So thinking back as far as you can, I'm talking coin-op, console, you name it. What's the first game you ever played that you can remember?
Space War. It was at the airport, Midland International Airport. 2 ships, one Klingon, one Enterprisey, and there was a star in the middle, and it would suck you in, and you were trying to shoot the other ship.
Was that an Atari Vector?
Yeah, it was a vector graphics style game.
I remember that. So about what year was that?
Oh, it was probably 79, 80, maybe.
Okay.
It may have been even earlier. I don't know, because I was really small.
That would be, yeah. I remember that game being there. It was down by the baggage.
Yeah. And, I had, $5 in quarters I spent on it. And
that was easy to do.
Yeah, because
those games were a rip-off.
They were, but I love that. And man, that was it. Man, I was a gamer then. I mean, that was like a shot of cocaine, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up, and if I can, I'll put a screen cap here so everybody can see it. I may even have it on my main machine back there, which we'll talk about later.
So a bit of trivia here about that style of game. I don't know if it was related. We can look it up after this. The guy that wrote Unix, Ken Thompson, one of the guys that wrote Unix, the forerunner of Linux, forerunner of Android. One of the reasons he created Unix is he needed a faster OS to run a space simulation game.
That makes complete sense.
So, and it was kind of like the game that I just described. So, now I have to go research it.
Yeah, and Vector is huge. I mean, if you look at asteroids and the ones that got really big were Vector.
Well, that's because it didn't have a lot of memory. So a vector graphic, you only store points. You don't store a raster.
Oh, so it's just the points and then a command to draw between.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So you only needed 5 bytes to draw a ship.
I had to do I did one that generated That was for class project, and I did one that drew a star field
Yeah.
with random size and then eventually random color dots. And then if you want to get crazy, you stick a line of code in there that joined them.
Yes.
So you would get the zigzag, and you would just sit there and stare at it until it filled the screen.
Yes.
How about you, Mike? First video game you ever played?
Well, the first video game I remember was seeing my uncle play Link to the Past for Super Nintendo. And I think since then that the whole Zelda series has always been, had a place in my heart for it. And
so that's part of Zelda. This is in my like dark ages. I have just a complete gap around that.
Yeah,
time.
it's that whole Zelda series, and I think I was actually born the same year that Legend of Zelda, the original one, came out. I think that was '86. And the first game that I can really remember playing would have been something on one of the Atari consoles. My parents had one, and I think me and my brother found it one time, and we hooked it up to a TV, and it was just Pong or Pitfall or whatever games that they had. Yeah. But I remember.
Was it horrible to you?
I mean, it was a gaming system, and it was something that we hadn't really ever had access to before, and so it was just like, oh, this is awesome. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably some kind of educational game where it was like, here's the letters, and you have to match.
Those suck.
Yeah.
Oh,
and they were cheap, so you always got them for Christmas.
Yeah, no, those those ought to be burned.
Yeah. We never got anything like that for Christmas game wise, not until the Nintendo 64 came out. But it was that, I remember, the wood paneling and everything on it. You put the cartridge in.
2600.
Yeah.
This guy.
The one on his shirt.
Yeah, is that same one.
Yeah.
And then I remember, all the controllers and everything, and just going through and just playing those games. So
yeah,
I wish I could find that, because I would love to, pull that out and do it.
I have an emulator. I may have it. We can go
I have the
it,
real deal. I don't have it with me, but I've got cartridges too.
Mm-hmm.
I've got unopened cartridges. Oh man,
that's cool.
I should have brought them. Oh, I'm feeling bad.
Mine was Atari Circus coin op. Remember that one? Has balloons going across the top in rows, and then you have little dudes on a seesaw.
Yes, I remember that one.
And one falls and he goes up and pops balloons, and you
I
try
remember
not to
that
splat
one.
it. Yeah, an impossible game, and it's on. I intentionally put it on that because that was the first one I ever saw. Witt's Grocery, the trailer park.
Yeah.
Airline trailer park in 1977, 78, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, I played all the greats after that. And then we get into consoles, and there is, man, you can lose yourself on Netflix and Amazon on Atari documentaries right now. The E.T. cartridge documentary is fantastic.
The game that killed the industry.
Yeah, and that the developer on that said he has the distinction of writing the best and the worst home video games of all times, because he wrote Yard's Revenge.
Yes, one of the greats.
Which, if you compare according to him and some other people, if you compare the sales of Yard's Revenge to anything after that, in comparison to the market, it was the highest grossing. And then he had to write E.T. in 6 weeks, and it sucked.
Yes.
So he wrote both of those. In fact, there's a whole video of them dumping E.T. where they got dumped into a landfill, and they mined it out again later. Yeah,
right.
There's all these weirdos lined up, guys like us, lined up to see it. So
yeah, that's insane.
And then I know going into the 90s, and I worked in a software store, PC gaming, just in my life, just completely gave way to any kind of console, because Atari was stuck in that
right, yeah,
I guess 8-bit world that was just, they couldn't do anything else with it.
Right.
They were able to kind of trick it, and the games looked like crap. And so I got into PC, and I remember the first game. This is weird. It's going to segue back to what we're playing today. There was a series of games written. It was Dungeons and Dragons, and somebody wrote an engine that was very close to, how a dungeon master would run a game. And they wrote several. I remember selling the Champions of Kryn and all these other in the D&D series, and then somebody took that and wrote a Twilight 2000 game, which is a role-playing game my friends and I were playing, and it sucked. But then somebody wrote a space game called Star Command.
Yes.
And I know you were around when we spent hours on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it had a single storyline to go through. You could go off and do random things, and make money and do bounties and stuff. but it had a storyline that you would inevitably follow to actually finish the game. And there are some bugs in it that make it impossible, and I've encountered that. I have it on an emulator, and I've played it twice, and I keep hitting the bug, and I can't remember where.
It, yeah.
See, I never really got into computer gaming, with the exception of like TIE Fighter and X-Wing.
Yeah.
And just the Star Wars
Those are
games.
two good ones, too.
Yeah.
I played X-Wing, not TIE Fighter, but X-Wing.
The Star Wars, the 80s console game with a wheel was a really good one. It was Vector, and it's
really good.
It was good. I mean, you were trapped in your altitude, and you were kind of herded into the trench on the Death Star. You couldn't like take off and explore, but it was really hot, and it ran fast. And it was good, but you get up to the 90s. The engine, I think, that was written for Doom.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of good history behind that. The guy that wrote Doom figured out, and this is brilliant.
And it's the same one that's on Wolfenstein, right?
Right. He's the same guy. So he couldn't use the same engine from Wolfenstein on Doom. He needed something faster, and he was looking at simulators for the military from the 60s. The guys in the 60s actually had solved this problem. They just didn't have a computer to run them on. And you could pre-calculate a distance and build this tree to pre-calculate what things would be visible and in scope depending on where the character was and that kind of thing. And it was a totally brilliant piece of code, and I mean, obviously changed the whole map.
Yeah.
But that single engine pretty much set the tone for everything after it. All the video game cards that we have now, the NVIDIA cards, the AMD cards, they pretty much were written to support that style of gaming, because once he did that, that new genre was
was off.
Yeah. That was Xbox, the what is it called? Halo. All of that follows on, and it all starts with him and that engine. But that research starts in the 60s. Without him reading those research papers and understanding them and translating that math into code, it's brilliant.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Well,
it's gorgeous.
They made so many games off of that, and just like the engine, the Dungeons and Dragons engine. The Dungeons and Dragons thing, we played the demo in the store. Anytime something would come in and it was slow, we'd fire it up and play with it. But until it was the space exploration version, I wasn't interested. Well, they came out with, of course, Wolfenstein and some of those, and then they had Nam, which was
vaguely remember
the
that
Vietnam-based one, and then somebody wrote Redneck Rampage.
Yes, I remember. I played that one. I think I bootlegged it.
Yeah, I still have it. I have an original. If you haven't seen that, it's written on that engine. It is absolutely
it's hilarious. Yeah.
Because all those games have the same. They have the same theme. You have a variety of weapons, and you move around in this world, and you have to shoot this character, or catch this one, and eat this, and don't eat that, and pick this up. And in a war game, you have ammo, you have health, things like that. Well, in this one, you have to be drunk.
Right. You get too sober.
But not too drunk. Yeah, you got the alcohol, the boozometer. Yeah,
right.
And then that was one thing. It was kind of like your ammo, and then you had a health and all this stuff. And there are chickens, randomly generated chickens everywhere, no matter where you went.
Right. So whoever owns the permissions to that, if you see this video, we need a VR version of this.
Yeah. We're going to jump off in VR. So after that, career and stuff, I flew a few flight simulators. That was when whatever Windows had the big jump.
Windows
with the
Flight Sim.
Yeah, where Flight Sim was really sharp, and my son was old enough to get into it. My roomie was really big into it, Richard.
Yeah.
And we flew a bunch of that, and then just for some reason, after that, not much. And that was my dark ages. So
right.
So have you pretty much gamed like all your life since then? I mean, are you?
No, with me it was like I said, seeing my uncle kind of play the games, and then it would be that Atari, and then my neighbor at the time had a Super Nintendo that we would just do some of the I think like Lion King, Aladdin, some of those Disney games that came out with them whenever the movies would come out.
Yeah.
And then from there till about 96, 97, there wasn't really anything that I was doing gaming wise. And then when the 64 came out, it was going into like Star Fox and Zelda and Mario and kind of getting into all of that stuff. and then just going from there. So it was Nintendo, then Xbox, and then PlayStation, and then just kind of circling between the three of them.
Okay, I see that. Well, and the reason we're here and what I wanted to talk about was there was a period of time where friends were talking about, younger friends at work, and I would read something or see it on Reddit, and when you look at that game, I feel like I can't get my head around it, and I have no idea where to jump in.
Which game is this?
Anything.
Oh,
I mean,
the new
just
ones.
in general, anything newer. Rainbow, starting going back to like Rainbow Six and some of those things that I want to understand. I did play the last of the Police Quest, the SWAT series. And it was kind of frustrating. It was okay, but it was one of those games that it was just too stupid. The way some of it was written. Yeah, it was frustrating. And I kind of went dark. I played a few, I love like the Hoyle games for like before you go to Vegas, you play the Hoyle Casino, and then they have board games and stuff that they're good time killers. When I'll be working a midnight security job somewhere or whatever. And that was it. I mean, that's what I did. I never got into anything good. And then that lasted up until I had surgery last year, and I could not buy Red Dead Redemption 2.
I remember that. I remember when you got that.
Yeah, that's a good game.
And, and it wasn't, it's a Western-themed game, but I started reading about it accidentally, and it's kind of revolutionary in its architecture and in the writing and in
storytelling,
the interface and the storytelling.
Yeah, and
a lot of really cool AI in it. And so I thought, all right, this is interesting. And one of the things, the way I can equate it for people my age and older, the way these games are, it's as intriguing as reading a novel, except you are making it happen.
Yeah.
All along the way, and it's always different. You could play the game through a million times. Of course, Red Dead, you can't play it through. It
never ends.
Go on forever.
Right.
And it never ends. And so it took me less time than I thought to learn how to move around in the world and use the controllers and understand things and how not to screw up, and then really get into the game. And you'll get tired of it, but on that game, you can take off and go hunting or go fishing or whatever and leave the storyline and come back to it. And there's a lot of freedom in it, and the graphics. When I had surgery, we stayed in a rental apartment that had a 4K TV in it. So I got to see it for the first time in that, and it's amazing. And it's the first thing I've ever done like that where my wife would sit and watch me play
the game
just to see the graphics. And
well, the storytelling, the graphics is very cinematic.
Yeah, it is. Everything about it, and some of it's simple and some of it's complex, and you find yourself taking notes about people you've talked to and where you ran into them, and the food, and all of these things everything's important. And the thing about it, what's intriguing is the character. You're playing a character. It's not something you pick out, but you play was Arthur Morgan, who is an outlaw in an outlaw gang. And even if you don't want to be an outlaw and you play him like a good guy, maybe you bounty hunt and you save some damsels and stuff like that, you still have to be a criminal. Like, for instance, I got into a thing where I was in a little town and was talking to some other people, and there was a guy who recognized my character as a train robber who was part of the big heist before they came to this town that they're in now. So now what do you do? Because he's going to run and tell the sheriff.
Do you kill him?
Right. So, and here you are on top of a lot of things. And it's happened twice. One guy wound up in a shootout and it killed him. And the other guy gave me a pin in a strange conversation. And I thought, I'm going to turn this guy loose. There's something to this. There's a reason. So you tuck it away. But you can sit by the campfire and craft things. And I'm not going to go on and on about this game. I'm just saying it draws you in the way a book will, and you're kind of running the world. And that brought me back, and that made me lose my fear to try a new game, just to put it on. And I'm running on 50% brain capacity with all the chemo and crap I was on. So
the game that did that for me was Last of Us, and there was a period there whenever all the games that were coming out were the same type of game. It was all World of Warcraft or Skyrim or Oblivion, and it was all of that. And the concept of the games I just can't get into those at all. I can't sit down and play them just for whatever reason. And so there was a while there where I was really kind of getting out of gaming.
I mean, do you just get bored, or
I think it's just I get bored with it.
Or is it just kind of, to me, what I pictured in some of those, it's like it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it to sit down and remember where the hell you were the last time.
I think it's a little bit of both. Just getting bored with it and then just kind of being overwhelmed with it. And like I said, the idea of the game, it's something that's like, oh yeah, I would absolutely love that. But then when I sit down and play it, it's just like, I just don't want to do this.
It becomes work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
I get it now. Yeah.
I there was a period there where I started getting out of gaming, console gaming or computer gaming, and then Last of Us came out and you kind of hear about it and it's like, okay, that's cool. And then I didn't ever do anything with it, and then I went to a friend's house and they said, you have to play this, and I played maybe 15-20 minutes of the game and I was like, this is just strong. This is exactly what I need game wise to just bring me back into everything. And even after that, playing it and everything, and I know some people will say it and people are kind of sick of hearing it, but that's a perfect game, I think. As far as gameplay, the characters, the acting in it, and just everything that it has. So and even now, I mean, there is a starting point, there is an end point to the game, but I've gone back and played through it. I don't even know how many times, just because I love that story so much. So
cool.
That you made me think of one of my problems was I'm good with computers. I dealt with and deal with complex things,
mm-hmm.
and I consider myself fairly intelligent, but still some of those games were just overwhelming in detail, and it was hard to ask anybody a question because it's like nobody knows how to talk to a new guy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And getting back into Red Dead, it drug a lot of people my age and older people into it for whatever reason, and it was easier to find info on it.
Right.
So
well, and it was intuitive and easy to find info, and that's the support. Finding info, man, that in today's world, that makes a game completely different.
It does. Yeah.
It does.
I'll tell you something funny about Red Dead for anybody that may be interested. And I'm thinking of a couple of my friends who are really into Western history. And this is a little later than what we would normally consider, cowboy stuff. This is right around 1900. So you're seeing like World War I stuff, Victorian, late Victorian and all. But I'll give you an example of how well this is written. Is you have to take care of your horse. You have to feed it, you have to pet it, you have to wash it, which I found out if you cross a river for a certain amount of time, it counts as washing your horse.
Okay. And
you have to pet him and take care of him. Now, we'll tell you this, the controller is a little weird if you're not used to doing everything with two thumbs, but it took me, seriously, folks, don't fear that controller. It took me about a day of gaming to figure it out, but
mm-hmm.
The controls are one thing when you're just walking by yourself, but when you get up next to your horse, now they correspond to being on the horse, so you're using different controls. So up does something different than when you're walking. So that's a long way of me telling you, throwing a punch is the same key as getting on your horse. And if you don't time it right, you will punch your horse. Seriously. And I think they did that on purpose. Because you do that 3 times and your horse will kick you to death. And you'll be an asshole for a while. And if you're in a really good part of the mission, you can't restart. And the thing is, if you screw up, you go back to where you started.
Well,
and you
it's
get to
part
try
of the
again.
game. There has to be some risk, or it's not a game.
How many times did that happen?
It happens it happened twice.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went for a while without playing because Jim took me down another wormhole, and I finally sat down and played it again, and it happened the first time because when you try to run and jump on the horse, it's
run and
easy
punch the horse.
You hit the get on the horse button, which is the same as the punch button, like to punch a bad guy, and Yeah, and you'll do stuff like that. Like you'll fire a shot off in a bar when you're trying to get money out of your pocket, and you actually. It takes a little.
I'm just picturing you running up to the horse and just punching it in the back. And
oh yeah. You slug the horse. It makes a sound. The horse jumps and runs away and won't come back. Because in the game you whistle and your horse comes after you, and he won't come. He's way over there on a hill looking at me like. And so the hunting and all that. It's a lot of fun. It was refreshing. It kind of welcomed me back to the world, and now I understand how to do it, and I'm less afraid to try new games. So
yeah.
And then Jim got me into VR.
Yes.
And that was the end of the world. So VR is the most amazing computer experience I've had so far.
Yeah.
I think so. And
so yeah, VR is awesome. So I am an early adopter, and I'm really, whatever's new in computers, I'm going to be on top of it. So I had one of the early headsets, and I called them vomit goggles, because after about 15 minutes, I was nauseous. I mean, there's just no way around it. But I built up a tolerance. I probably can do an hour on those old ones now. But they were awesome. I mean, the technology was awesome, immersive. Mm-hmm. Even as bad as the experience was, it was still, I could see what was coming. And then new technology comes out. The new technology, I got it. I played it for a while. I'm like, oh, geez, this is awesome. Go get my wife. Hey, put these on, play something. I don't feel nauseous. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mike's played it because Jim built me a monster computer, and we bought the Steam Index, Valve Index, running all the Steam games. And so if you don't know what VR is, virtual reality, you put a pair of controllers in your hand and a headset on, and you see, hear, and interact in a completely computer-generated world while you're standing in your living room, and it's completely immersive. So you can look behind and over your shoulder when you hear the noise of the bad guy sticking up on you. It is incredibly disorienting for a while. I have gotten queasy from it a time or two. Your ears and your eyes aren't communicating, so you get queasy. And I think the top game right now is Beat Saber. Is that still number one?
It's still number
in
one.
VR.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But
Half-Life is coming out in VR, and it's supposed to be awesome.
What's
a version of Half-Life?
Really?
Yeah, and I forget what it's called, and you will get a free copy of it because you have the Valve Index.
Okay, cool.
So,
real quick, talking about how immersive and everything it is. The first time Matt called me over here and was just like, "You gotta try this," and I was like, "Okay." We're in that main room, and we started having Wi-Fi trouble, and so Matt's sitting probably 2 feet away from me, typing and trying to figure out everything. And he's like, "Yeah, just go look around the room and everything." So I'm like, "Okay." I'm going around and looking throughout this little room that he has in this house, and then you go outside to the mountains. And I'm probably 30 feet away from him in the game, and I'm yelling at him like, "Oh, this is really cool! Look at this!" And this is. And then I stopped, and I was like, "Okay." It's like I realize I'm only like 2 feet away from you, but it's just throwing
so
you
immersive.
off completely.
Yeah. To describe the experience, so if you turn on your Windows computer and you have your background and your icons and all right there at your disposal, when you put on your VR goggles and turn it on, you're in sort of like a Japanese tea house with screens that you point to, and you laser with things you want to do, and then you can go outside and sit in one spot and butterflies land on you, and it's just a kind of a place to kill time. It's fascinating. And Beat Saber is number one, and I have yet to see anyone who just doesn't like it. And
it's the perfect VR game.
Yeah. Beat, B-E-A-T, and then Saber. Look it up, and in summary, you are standing on a platform with a lightsaber in each hand. Objects are thrown at you in sync with music, which you can choose and select and vary by level. And you chop them with your lightsaber in a certain direction that it tells you to. And then you have to dodge these objects and miss these. So there's some movement to it, but it's more intuitive than something like a Wii. It's you're interacting in you forget where you are, that you're in your living room. And I will tell you, I played it, I enjoyed it. Jim brought it over and showed it to me, and I thought it was cool. My wife, she works out. She's, let's face it, folks, we're getting to my age, we're beat up joints and stuff like that, and high impact stuff doesn't do it. She now plays Beat Saber on a high level for a workout.
Yeah.
And then I go to play mine. I put it on. It's like
it's
all
sweaty.
wet, so I have to clean it off. But she has a great time with it, and catches a workout. And so for me, in my physical condition now, Beat Saber's cool, but I've found other games that get me moving to the level that I can exert to without, and in a safe environment, and I can work out rain or shine, and it's very stimulating stuff that I need right now to kind of get through all the crap I'm dealing with, and I'm loving every second of it, of the VR. So.
Yeah, it can be so. If I use it as escapism, I mean, it is literally. Yep. I will spend hours in VR if I've had a really stressful week and Friday night's going and with nothing else going on. I can put on those goggles. I can jump in my spaceship and I leave this planet. Yeah. And I might just be out there exploring, or I might be mining an asteroid, or I might be getting my butt kicked by a pirate who's actually a 12-year-old girl on the other side of the planet. Yeah. But VR it's going to shape the future creators, and you can see the seeds of it in some of the games. You can see the new horror genres and the new storytelling and the new immersive draws you in ways that are hard to describe. Some of the games truly draw you in to the point where you forget that you're in a game. I've had some games that have triggered fight or flight to the point where I was going to run before I realized I'm in my living room and perfectly safe.
Yeah, it will. Yeah. And like I have a hard time the way that my brain's been affected by all this treatment. I have a hard time reading now. Uh-huh. And I've typically read novels, and a few novels from a few authors and nonfiction in history, and I have a very difficult time picking up the book and remembering what I read last time. And I can get into a VR world and it becomes intuitive, and it's just as immersive as especially something with a story. So
yeah. And the storytelling is becoming a thing. So one of the games, and I don't think you've played it yet, is Duck Season, and it's based on the Duck Hunt. Do you remember Duck Hunt with the dog and
the dog that laughs at you when you miss?
Yeah, except Duck Season draws you in a way that I cannot begin to describe. And you think that when you first get in the game, it is going to be just a fun VR kind of game, and by the end of it, you're like looking over your shoulder.
There is I don't mean to cut you off.
I'm sorry
about that. There is a game I saw a video about, and I think this is the same one you're talking
Duck
about.
Season, yes.
And I'm gonna ask you about this later, so don't let me forget, because I don't want to spoil anything on.
Okay. Yes, we can talk about it later, because I've played it through twice now, and it's not the same ending every time.
I gotta try it now.
And because it's online, they seem to add seasonal content, like Halloween things started appearing in the game, but they made sense in the game. They didn't just throw a Halloween thing in. It was actually part of the kind of the storyline, and it has implications for how you tell stories in the future, that the story could change. You could go back to that novel, read it again, and hey, now the bad guy's a good guy. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, the one of the games that took me in was hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades.
A classic.
Yeah, and
I like that they bleed mustard.
Yeah. So what it is, there's so much to this game. I'm going to try to. It's everything from firing ranges and shooting gallery type games, to simulations of warfare and SWAT type things, and the weapons are hyper accurate. They're historically correct. If you pick up a gun and rack the slide on it or break it open, it is actually playing the sound of that particular weapon opening. So if you pick up an MG42 from World War II, it is the sound of that bolt being locked back and the sound of that weapon being fired. And tons of I duplicated what I used to carry on SWAT perfectly.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I have the same sight and everything. And then it gets into the fantasy stuff. Like it has the minigun type from Terminator and things that don't necessarily
really
like they have the
exist.
H&K G11 that never really worked. But if you want to shoot one that works the way it's intended, it's in that game. And it's the horseshoes. There are horseshoes everywhere in the game, so you can play horseshoes whenever you want. The hot dogs are just, you can throw hot dogs up in the air and shoot them or throw them at targets. But if you get into simulation, they're the bad guys. They're animated hot dogs that, like Mike said, they bleed mustard. And they wear body armor and shoot at you. And they give stormtrooper quotes and stuff like that. And they, you know, it's funny, but at the same time, I have a blast with the realism of it. And this is hard to. How many times have we said this is hard to explain? When we
It
talk about
really
VR?
is. So
I wish I would have brought one of my controllers in here, but it wraps around your hand. And in that game, when I go to pick up a weapon, I have to squeeze my controller to pick it up.
you get that feel.
You have the feel, and then you have to thumb cock a hammer or operate a safety selector or a bolt or an operating handle or a slide. You can drop around and pick it up and load. And then they have real things, and then they have fantasy things. So in the hand grenades, they have the M67. I can't remember now, the baseball grenade. They have the old hand grenade, the old pineapple. They have the German potato masher. The flashbang on it, I tried to throw a flashbang, and it never went off. And I thought, I pulled the pin and everything, what I screw up, and I remembered back on my SWAT days, there was a couple of brands that came with 2 pins.
Wow.
Had a pre-pin, another one. And so I went back and got another one, and it had the two
Two
pins
pins
in
on
it.
it,
So
just
you
like
have
the real
to-
deal.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like the real thing. But then they have one, it's a red one called the Jingler.
The jingle.
And you throw it, and it explodes Christmas-colored confetti, and it makes jingle bell noises. There are fireworks in it, so you can go out to the desert in Arizona at night and create fireworks displays with mortars and shotgun rounds and grenade rounds. So if you want to just go, if you have one of those days where you really just feel like blowing something up,
Right.
this is the game. And for me, it's been fun because I can do kind of a shoot house experience like we used to do.
Right. Like we used to just hang out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as teenagers, we used to just go out and shoot stuff.
Yeah. Or just you do that. You go out and you literally shoot cans. If you're fans of Hickok 45 on YouTube, they have cloned Hickok 45's range,
Cool.
complete with the flower pots and stuff. So that is such a cool, pointless game. There's no storyline. There's no characters. There's no nothing. It's just you. And if you want to shoot some sort of antique, like crank Gatling gun in VR, you want to shoot at flying things with an RPG-7. They have a Stinger missile
Yes, that would be
in
cool.
there, and it's all food themed. So there's flying steaks
Ooh,
at this one range, and you shoot at them. It is goofy. It's not as intuitive as others to learn, but you do pick it up. So
Cool.
But
I have a story about that. So the one time I played that, I went to the shooting range and I managed to pick up the gun and to load it, and then that's about as far as I could get. I couldn't figure out anything else in the actual game itself. So you do have to have some kind of working knowledge of, firearms in order to
that's
do
what
anything.
so he didn't know how to use the gun.
Yeah, I
so
don't know how
Right.
to use any of the guns. So
Yeah.
I'm there trying to figure it out, and it's like I can't do this. So I ended up just throwing it on the ground and hoping for the best with the next one. But
Yeah.
no luck. So I told that story to some guys at work, and they just looked at me and just shook their heads and were like, "We have to do something about that."
Oh,
for
yeah.
you."
Yeah.
I can hook you up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm retired from it, but I'll still teach friends. So
and I'm woefully behind the time. So the way you stepped away from games, I stepped away from firearms.
Yeah.
So
well, and where the hell are you going to shoot that doesn't cost $200 an hour?
Exactly. That's one of my biggest challenges up there. You can't ride a motorcycle. You can a dirt bike, four-wheeler, stuff like that. So I'm always you have to pay to do anything or drive.
Yeah.
And so but yeah.
Well, it's like we were talking about the last episode about shooting in your backyard.
Right.
I have a lot of cool guns and I have antique guns and stuff that's just fun to shoot and go out and shoot cans with. And I can't do that at the police range. I can't do that at the Ally Outdoors.
Right.
So I have to drive 2 hours to, where my observatory is, to go out, and I can do whatever I want. We shoot cans and rocks and stuff all the time, but I can fire this game up and
there
burn
you
off
are.
some steam, and it's the only thing. The downside of it is there's no weight to the guns.
So
it's a little weird.
Talk to me after this if I got a deal for you.
Cool.
3D printing. So that's another one of my
we do
addictions.
Need to have a discussion because I think that would solve the biggest problem in that. So when you pick up an M16 and you
it has no weight.
The stock, not only does it not have weight, but your hands are still floating in space. So you're holding the firing grip and the foregrip, and there's nothing really holding them in place. So in real life, you're kind of sucking all that into your body.
Right.
And I think if you had something you could hold both of those controllers to, it'd just be a stick. I was thinking about building something like that, but anyway,
we'll talk
crazy.
about that later.
Yeah, look it up. Just look up that game. But we're kind of we're making this one short. My hopes in this are to attract people who need a little escape and are having a hard time finding it because God knows there's nothing to watch on TV. Reading may or may not be your thing. Like I said, I love to read, but I have difficulty with it now.
See, now's the point where you throw in an Audible sponsorship.
That's what we need, yeah. But we're gonna have a discussion about Elite.
Yes. So my addiction, my personal addiction.
I'm there. I have Elite track marks now.
Yes. So for you younger people in the audience. There originally was an Elite game back in 1984. Yeah. I was going to say 85.
Copyright's 84.
I still have my original manual, by the way.
When you start the game, it says copyright 1984 to 2019.
So I have the 1984 version of the game for my Commodore 64. And I still have my Commodore 64. And I have been playing Elite since 1984, off and on, in all of its flavors. And Elite in VR is it's undescribable. It's everything that a Star Trek fan kind of thinks of, maybe even a Star Wars fan. You are your own in your own ship. There's no storyline, but there are stories. You can mine, you can be a pirate, you can be a bad guy, you can be a good guy. And there are other people in this universe. Oh, by the way, the ones that have square radar signatures, those are real humans.
Okay.
And you can open your mic and talk to them real time, voice to voice.
Cool.
Did it on accident.
I haven't tried that. So.
Yeah. So here you are flying your ship and exploring, and in the game, whenever there's something real discovered, the game more often than not the developers will go put it in. So if we discover a new star, they will put it in. Yeah. But it's also got billions of stars on its own.
It takes place in the Milky Way galaxy.
Right.
And charted in the Milky Way in the year 3000 something. That's
right.
Populated by mostly humans and a few aliens. And you start this game off with a little bit of money and a ship.
Yes. The ship's on loan. So
yeah. And you go through training scenarios, and you can learn how to fly it, and learn how to do different things, and read. And if you want to know what the future in 3000 looks like, it's a geek flying a spaceship with a Google window open, learning how to where you're Googling how to do this. And so we started playing it together. So we're online communicating to each other through the VR headsets, which sound amazing.
Yeah.
And we went out the other night and hunted pirates. We were just bounty hunted people. So
yeah, and it was awesome. And having someone to play with even takes it to another level.
Yeah.
And the fact that this game goes back so far, and that it's come so far, and it has this huge world following. You can join other people on their ship, so you can be a co-pilot, so to speak. And you can man weapons on the ships, and the large ships can have fighters on board. And they're constantly adding to it. You can land on non-atmospheric planets right now, and they'll keep building this game forever. And
I'm gonna link. I finally found. We had this conversation while you and I were talking. Is how do you explain to a non-gamer friend what this is like? I finally found the video. I asked on Reddit, and I finally found the video that I'm going to link it here. That gives a rundown of the graphics and to explain the experience, the cockpit experience in VR. You're sitting at a desk with your controls and a VR hood, and you look around your spaceship and you see the full cockpit. You see it behind you, and you look in certain spaces and certain menus pop up. But they're called hard points. They're things that extend that have guns and sensors and other tools on them, and you can't do certain things like go really fast with them sticking out. And so I couldn't tell on this new ship that I got if the hard points are out or not because of the way it's shaped. You can't see them like you could in the others. They would actually stick out in your cockpit. So I'm sitting at my desk, and I thought, are my hard points out? And I didn't really know in this new one how to tell. So I stood up and looked over the dash, and I go, okay, there they are. They're out. So that's how
immersive it is.
You can actually do that. And I noticed so many little touches. He and I were talking, and one thing, there's no time jumping in it. Everything you do is real time in their space time. So if you hyperspace over 9 light years, it takes a while, but we found a place that was frustrating because it took us 20 minutes to fly to it. And we're both flying together and we're just talking, but we noticed occasionally the communication would garble, and I thought, well, I guess it's just maybe my connection. No, we're going through the plasma
ejection
gates. The that hold the airlocks in, the air in the space station. The graphics are just breathtaking. I love to bring people over and just let them fly through a space station and just see it. It's phenomenal. And you can be whatever you want in there. And it's kind of like Red Dead Redemption in the way you act is how the game treats you.
Right. Yeah. Like if you're evil, the game will treat you as evil.
Yeah.
And if you're good, the game will treat you as good. And if you're neutral, it treats you as neutral.
Yeah.
And I've for a while I went pirate. And it was a lot of fun, but then every time I went to a larger environment, a larger station or something, I got attacked because I was a bad guy, and I was like, "Oh, this is no fun." And so, you get pushed back to being civil.
Yeah.
But then there's also real human people. So there's a group called the Fuel Rats, and these are real people. And if you find yourself stuck in the middle of nowhere, you run out of fuel or low on fuel and can't escape. You can go to a real website, send out a distress signal, tell them where you are, and they will coordinate a time to bring you fuel to your ship. Real humans will fly their virtual ships and help you.
Yep.
And that's just amazing. And
what got me, and again, you worry, okay, do I build all this up and I screw up and get blown up? Or do I start over? And this one, no. But you have to pay insurance.
Yes, there's an insurance fee.
Yeah, you have to pay a deductible if you blow your ship up.
So. Yes.
And it sounds, and I was very intimidated. And Jim had asked me when he built this machine, and Jim, God bless you, man, he kicked in a lot of parts that he had, and I bought the rest. Yeah, he's Bitcoin miner. And I just said, man, Jim, is there what could I do? I mean, he doesn't really have an interest in anything else that I'm into. There's nothing I could do for him. And he said, dude, you're a pilot. I've got this ship. I keep getting invaded. Learn how to fly this and come
help me.
Come help me.
Please. Yes.
And so I I dreaded it for a while because I was afraid of the complexity and again my challenges I have thinking, and pretty soon I put on those goggles, and again I'm retired, and I put on the goggles before I engaged Jim. I didn't want to look like an idiot flying with him, and I put on the goggles and learned how to fly the ship, and I found a job hauling supplies between systems in this little podunk ship that they gave me. And I played for a while, and I thought, oof, I'm kind of hungry. And I took them off, and it's daylight. My wife's at work. And, I had started. Yeah, I'd played for like 12 hours. Now, I was blazing on the chemo steroids at the time.
Yeah.
And my wife
that has
came
happened
in.
So many times to me.
Jim and I were playing, and what's funny, he's played for years, all the way back. I did play it in the 80s, but it didn't.
It's not as much fun.
It was lacking. Well, I played Star Command because I liked the
storyline,
the team, and the story. Well, now we have that plus everything else, and so we're playing. I've been playing it. I think I had 77 hours logged, and he learned a few things from me from a different experience.
I did, and it was so interesting.
After all this, he'd been flying different kinds of ships and
different missions, and and what's interesting, all the hours I have, and I have 1,500 hours in this version of Elite by itself, and I'm still considered novice on combat. I'm
mostly harmless. Is my rating.
He's mostly harmless, which is above novice. So
is it?
Yes,
I didn't know that.
You've already beat me.
Well, that's only on combat. Yeah.
Yeah, but on Explorer, I'm Elite. I'm the highest rank.
And when I flew it like an airplane, I just got mauled.
Right, because it's not an airplane.
But what do? You go to YouTube and you find some guy. There's a little old British guy with the most soothing, like, story time voice that explains that game. If you're tired, you'll fall asleep. His voice is so smooth. But he'll tell you all you need to know about the game. And guys, don't be afraid of it if this sounds the least bit interesting. If you want to be a part of a movie, if you want to be Han Solo
or Chewbacca,
that's Elite.
That's for you.
And if you're into Westerns and you just want to try something out, sit down. Red Dead Redemption. Local folks, if you want to see a VR, give me a shout. I will show you mine. I've showed it to a lot of friends, and everyone has been impressed. Mm-hmm. And possibly slightly nauseated.
Yes, but they are much better than they were.
But other than that, most of my games now are VR. I'm not playing much else.
Since I've hadn't gotten VR, I haven't played. The only game that I play that's not VR is Command and Conquer, and that's really ancient. It's an ancient game, and it's only because my son really likes it. That and there's another game he likes. They're strategy games, strictly strategy. VR would add nothing to them. Yeah.
I still play my Hoyle.
Yes.
I do the casino sometimes. Sometimes my brain really digs the numbers and playing blackjack and.
Yeah.
The AI, the system in the newer one is really good.
But yeah, and like Matt said, I put on the goggles and I'll take them off, and it's 2 a.m. and everybody's gone to bed, and I'm like, where did the day go? Yeah.
And your problems again. We had a conversation yesterday when we recorded the episode about shooting, and getting behind the trigger or firing an arrow or throwing an axe. You're forced to kind of get into a zen place. There's no room for anything else but that moment between you and the target. And playing something like Elite or even H3VR, the shooting game I'm talking about.
Yeah, you have to get in that
and even with my problems, even with all the crap that's going on in my life health-wise, that is such a brilliant... I never thank you enough for setting me up with that VR.
Anytime.
VR is expensive and you need a good computer, but it's... 100% worth it. And again, I probably I may have passed on it, but until my wife played Beat Saber and figured out she can get a workout on that. And now she's already online trying to find ways to hack it and get me games. So it's amazing. So those are two games that I would recommend. You can play Red Dead Redemption on PC and online now,
I believe so.
PS4 now. Mm-hmm. I believe it's Scott Green plays in PC, I believe, and another friend of ours. And you can play Elite without VR.
Right, you can play Elite on. Actually, it's on Xbox, it's on Mac, and it's on PC.
Yeah, it's on everything.
Yeah.
So 2 games I think old people could take a fair swipe at. If you can run a word processor, you can figure those out pretty quick. And there's absolutely no harm in getting in there and screwing up. You got to learn a little bit at a time,
and that's the point. If there's no risk, it's not worth playing.
Yeah.
If it is, there's no sense of risk.
Yeah. If you can't figure out how to feed the horse, you Google how do I feed the horse in Red Dead Redemption, and poof,
there you
30
go.
seconds you'll have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Good starter games. Good.
Yeah.
You got any ideas? Anything else that you're?
No, it was
we kind of took a kind of monopolized the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
fine. It was talking about Elite, and my only experience with that is just going through the station, which was very cool. But yeah, those are all good games to really go and jump into.
How mind blowing was just seeing Elite the first time?
It was crazy because there was in you, it was. It was like, oh yeah, do you want to see Elite? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go over there, and then you're like, oh, Sharon, take a look at this. Oh, Tim, take a look at this. Oh, Nicole, come look at this. And I'm just there like, you brought me over here to look at this.
Yeah. Till everybody showed up, and well, there were girls there, so we let them. So
and that's fine. And then I got to sit down in the chair and put the headset on. Camera just went
Camera
off.
was off. Yeah.
when did it do that?
Just now. I sat down in the chair and started looking around and kind of seeing everything that was happening, and it was just like, this is too much. This is cool. So
yeah, it's outstanding, and you start to get into it, and it takes over your world and becomes a real escapism.
Yeah,
I mean, it really. And I could see actually VR addiction becoming a thing at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Which I will probably be the first.
It says battery level low, and it's not running on the battery.
That's
what it is.
It's our gremlins.
So we're on one camera. We're gonna finish the podcast on one camera. Mike, you're just gonna have to
swing into.
We'll put him in here, or we'll just turn it. But
yeah,
we're just about done anyway.
Right.
But it's been a different experience, and definitely a blessing for where I am.
And it's a way to get out when you can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I could go on. I still visit a few. It's encouraged me to kind of revisit a few old games and some online games. And if you played a game at some point in your life in the 80s, 90s, whatever, and you can't find it anymore, Google it, because a lot of people are rebuilding those once they're abandonware, and you can play them online.
Yes.
So
and it's a thing, and it's there are people like myself who will actually go out and rebuild the game and build an emulator for it. So.
Yeah. All the old Atari games. I marveled at it the other day. Ronnie Aaron, a buddy of mine, and I are on a PS4, which is probably more computing power than the 1970s space program, and we were playing Atari 8-bit asteroids on it. So yeah.
It's insane how much the computer power is.
Anyway, enjoyed it. We're gonna go in and finish our visit, and all of us hang out. Jim's lovely bride is here, and I just wanted to hopefully get some old people into gaming. Hopefully draw some more friends into the Elite world and join the wing and help us take over the world. Because
we need all the pilots we can get.
Yeah, you'll have a great time with it. So.
And you don't have to have VR to play Elite.
Yeah, just
grab
Steam
a computer
and
And usually it's on sale for $20, $30.
That's the thing that's killing me, is how cheap those things are. Those games were more than $20 in the 80s.
Yeah. Back in the original Elite was like $40, something like that.
Yeah, in the 80s. And now you just online $14, $15, $20 for the coolest games. I haven't played more than $20.
And I would encourage you to just get a Steam account. You don't even have to spend anything. Some games will go on sale for 100% off. And you just go get them. They're at no cost.
Yeah. And I think I can legally post my own screenshots from Elite without.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so I'll throw some screenshots up here,
and I'll show you how to capture video.
I saw the Steam link for that. The little control character, not the Xbox one, but there's another one you can do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to capture voice, so we'll have to go over all that. But every once in a while, I'll see something cool and take a picture, and it's fascinating if you're into art. It is 100% art, all the way through visual art, the graphics, all the detail.
Just the fact that the computer generates a lot of this itself is the coders behind it. I'm a coder, so I am always in awe of what's accomplished in these games.
Well, you said something kind of profound, or you say profound things a lot, but we were playing the other night, and you said, I wonder, I would like to be a part of something like this. I would love to code for somebody like this, but I'm afraid it would take some of the magic out.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that. I thought, yeah, that's, I can totally see that.
If you learn how the trick's done, it's no longer as fun to watch.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we'll shut down. We're about an hour in, and I guess, Mike, you can move that camera or just scoot over by Jim. I don't want to leave you out.
I'm going to scoot over here.
That's the same camera that died, so I guess it's got some kind of battery issue. Anyway, cheers. Gentlemen, cheers. And let's go play some games.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I'm going to shoot that camera.